What's up, guys? My name is Suicide Guard, and that's right. I am finally doing it. And, in case you didn't know, I'm reviewing this. I'm reviewing this album, the Unholy Deification. But first, I need to get it on the player. So, I'm just going to check the volume here real quickly. That's good. That's a good volume. So, I have to say, this album is one that definitely is gonna sit well within their discography, and, well, I'm just gonna be kind of waving my dick around and, talk about this. So, I have some notes, actually, here, that I'll be scrolling through, and I'll basically just go through the songs and see what I think about everything and such, and so. So I actually have some notes about the songs that, are on the album. No shit, but, yeah. So, straight away, in the first song called Offerings, there's a cool blasting intro, and I'm obviously playing it in the background, so it's gonna be playing some songs, but I'm not gonna be playing the entire album because I'm trying to keep this somewhat short. It's just straight up blasting intro and an awesome upbeat, like old school death metal style fills and solos all over the place, and then there's like a middle part riff in the middle of the song, like literally. That's why I call it middle part riff, where it's just the guitar, and it's just awesome, and leads into this fucking blazing fast double kicks, fucking chaos into a very awesome solo. So, and it's just this is a very nice opening track, because it's one of the tracks that, I guess, to me, would feel like, okay, this is very typical for Incantation, but there's some stuff here and there that are very, like, new to the fucking band. Not new as in, like, oh, they've never done something like this before, but it's just, like, fresh riffs, fresh songs, fresh sounds, you know, that stuff. Then we got the fucking chorus riff, which is really good and very well made, and I think it actually has some hints of black metal influence in there for some extra flavor. I don't know why I put that in the notes, but I just literally said for extra flavor. And it might not be directly in their head as black metal influence, but that's the way I interpret it. It sounds like mainly death metal with some like very slight hints of black metal in there for the chorus riff. It's a very good song. Again, I'm gonna say this probably more than once. I recommend you just listen to this album, because I'm not very good at explaining why I like something or why I like anything in that matter. I'm just like able to say like the very surface level. I'm not like a deep talker. I don't start having a philosophy moment. So it's basically what I just said about this song, the first one, is gonna be about the same for the rest of the video. Anyways, on to the second song, Concordat. Main riff is arguably one of the best riffs out of the past 10 years of death metal, just period. At least that I've heard personally, one of the best fucking riffs. It's super memorable and super sing-along. Like as a riff, like it's one riff that you'll be like hearing it, you'll be like thinking of it randomly when you're like out of the store, and you'll be like, haha, new. That's what I will do, because it's such a fucking super memorable riff. Easily one of the, as I said, one of the best riffs I've heard, fucking out of death metal, one of them at least, you know. Very fucking awesome riffing. It was actually like, when I heard that first single, because it is the first single, I was just like, okay, this is a banger. I mean, this album is gonna be super good. I can tell you 100%, Concordat, the first single, was the actual reason I even pre-ordered the album in the first place. Because the song was so awesome. But then you got the fast fucking, like, pre-chorus-ish part, you know, after all the verses and stuff, the slow fucking do-do-do-do, you know, that leads into an awesome fucking blasting chorus with some killer, like, lead guitar, some leads, you know, the fucking lead guitar. I fucking forgot the name now, but I remembered it when, I think he's called Luke. He's a younger guy, but he's definitely, he knows how to write a mean death metal melody. That, and then we got the fucking bridge, which of awesome catchy riffing once again, just to really set in stone that Incantation are still on top of their game, goddammit. I mean, it's just a really great song, and then the outro riff starts fast, really cool blasting, but then goes into the awesome Super Doom stuff. I like to call it Super Doom. That it's just a signature of Incantation. It's a signature sound for them. That very slow, doomy, like, one note per 5 seconds, you know. It's a sound that's very accustomed to the band, let's just say that. But this is probably the most, like, one of the freshest songs on the albums. One of them. But there's one that I actually call the freshest song on the album. So we're gonna head on to that in a minute. Not now, though, because now we're gonna be talking about fucking Chalice. More blasting, and even would argue even more black metal than the riffing in the beginning, on, like, you know, the first song. And the verse that kicks in later on is just crushing, brutal riffing, and the drumming as well. And I'm really fucking impressed with Cal Severn's fucking drumming on this album. He knocked it out of the park with this one. I feel like some of these parts are faster than I ever heard him play. Ever before. And then the chorus kicks in, like a chorus type thing. Kicks in with lots of black metal style, death metal. And this time it's a lot more black metal sounding death metal, in my opinion, because of the riffing and cavalt blasting, as I like to call it. There's even some in the first, in the heaven half, in the Concordat. And then we go back to the typical riffing Incantation fashion, the typical Incantation riffing fashion, and fucking, you know, just riff for a little while here, having fun with the riffs, and then going back to the brutal fucking verse. And honestly, I love the way the one thing that stood out first was like, I love the way the right cymbal sounds on this album. And the way the drums sound in general on this album, I think the drums are perfectly fucking perfect. You would have to look to find a better. Actually, you can't. I actually think this might be the best a drum can sound with a modern-ish mix. Because it still has that oomph of like an old-school death metal drum sound, while bringing in some modern elements. It's just so... that's like the chef's kiss of the album, like the drum sound and with the guitars and all that. Absolutely fucking killer, no filler on the drums, at least. And then we move on to Homunculus. Actually, the second single they released, I believe. I'm a little bit flaky on this, but I believe that is the case. It is probably the most typical song for Incantation. I wrote it as probably the most Incantation-y song that wasn't released as a single, at least. But also that sweet Incantation, you know, pitch harmonics, riffing that they do a lot, you know, like that riff. But that's not the same fucking, you know, And a lot slower than the first couple songs in general, and a lot darker in the way it sounds, which is awesome, because more Death Doomy songs are tons of fun to headbang to. Like, I like the slower songs when it comes to headbanging. When it goes fast, I'm like, oh my god, my neck! Ah! Ah! You know. And then a Bridge of Sorts kicks in that has a very cool, dark, doomy vibe that you can expect from Incantation on every album they'll do, pretty much. And then Luke fucking comes in with an amazing solo that just sounds evil as fuck, man. I spit on the camera there, I saw it. I usually don't catch that. I usually just see it in post and I feel really embarrassed about it. But yeah, and then the outro is very dissonant. I love that shit, you know? Chunky, and really gives the end a brutal finish. And then we move right into Invocation. Probably the most fresh sounding song on the album for Incantation. As in, this sounds the most modern out of the songs. And it has a very awesome intro solo, super awesome fucking verse riff, how his fucking air guitar, you know, the verse riff is fucking awesome. Definitely one of the more memorable verse riffs in the album, in case you happen to give a fuck for me. And it's just really cool. And then they move into some fucking fast blasting, so they do have, obviously, the old school death metal shit, but it's like good shit. It's all the good shit. And this song just felt the most creative because of the way the riffs come together and manage to keep the old school Incantation style while also experimenting with new feels. That's just the way I feel about this song in general. Then we go on to my second favorite song on the album after Concordat. I'm gonna mention that more in the last ending of the video. But it's just a crushing intro. You can't go wrong with this. Then it has some fucking leads. Great fucking leads into a fucking awesome verse. Super, just that dark sounding riffing. Just pure evil riffing. Stuff like that, you know. And then they kick into a fucking pre-chorus like thing that's really awesome. And of course, you know, it's just that riffing that you can really expect from the Incantation at this point, because they've pretty much been the same band since Diabolical Conquest, just that some albums are maybe more faster than others, some are more doomy, some are more in between, some are more in between, if you know what I mean. But they're very consistent in the way it sounds. And then the awesome fucking chorus with some very similar dissonance to what you would hear on Morbid Angel's Gateways to Annihilation, in my opinion. Which, by the way, I happen to be wearing this t-shirt right now. The fucking Gateways to Annihilation t-shirt. I didn't even script that. I didn't remember that I wrote that. But it's right here. Gateways to Annihilation t-shirt. So yeah, I obviously love the Death Doom shit. And we'll talk more about that. And, and an awesome Incantation pinch harmonic riff that just sits right in the pocket, you know what I mean? Just absolute perfect. Then we move on to fucking Convulse. Are we on the second side now? Yeah, we're almost done here, actually. That's good to know. With the slow and brutal intro, to contrast from the previous songs that were sort of fast. This time around, I think it's a good time to point out just how fucking awesome John McEntee's vocals are, and how well he's been, how well maintained he's been on it. How well maintained his vocals are over the years. I mean, ever since Blasphemy, they've held on. they haven't weakened or anything. They haven't like went down, or they haven't become any Chris Barnes evolution, you know, that embarrassing stuff. It's been very consistent and heavy death metal, dead evil, dead heavy, you know, dead heavy, dead evil, death metal. And then you get more blasting riffing that you find household to your favorite black metal. You know, it's there. I'm almost confident at this point in the album that there's at least some black metal influences in there, at least some. It would be weird to be like, no, I hate black metal. Like, if they said that, I would be very surprised, because some of these riffs just sound like straight up black metal. But, like, more death black, you know. Not black and death, but more death black, if that makes sense. I know Father Van has also touched on this. It's a special type of thing. Then brutal riffing over the blasts, just right back in, and then right back into the fucking chunky, just sound like you're punching the guitar. Just that kind of riffing, the chunky riffing, chugga chugga chugga, goes to the chugga train, you know what I mean? And then the outro goes right back to the blasting and black metal-ish riffing, and goes in for a very awesome brutal finish. Which is just, I mean, what can I really say? I mean, I can only really say what's in my notes here, so I'm just gonna describe my notes for most of this. And then Altar is the most doomy song on the album. Like it has an absolutely jarring intro of menacing growls and so dark riffing, and probably the most darkest, most dissonant verse riff on the album. Like, it's absolutely hellish sounding. Like, absolutely out of this world, unreally fucking how heavy it is. And then I typed a chorus question mark in parentheses that was just super doomy and dissonant, really unfriendly on the ears and not inviting at all. Just how it should be. Because it should be evil to the ears. It shouldn't sound friendly, you know what I mean? And it's like, some of these vocals are like John McEntee or fucking chanting evil spells and calling upon the demons of the underground to rise. And then we move on to fucking Exile. Another great intro solo. They have a lot of more solos than I'm used to hearing in this album, which is awesome, because Luke is really good at doing it, so why not have more solos when we have a guy that can do it? And it's a really good one, and just like Invocation, it's another song that's very fresh for Incantation on the opening riff, and then the fucking... they just kick it with super fast and brutal blasting, and a bomb blast. No kidding! Bomb blasting! It sounded like I was listening to Hammer Smash Face at this point. But no, I was listening to Cal Silver on the fucking drums. I was absolutely mind blown by the fact that out of nowhere you get the fucking bomb blast. Which is ultra fucking awesome, because that's not something that's been too common for Incantation. I don't even recall hearing that much. So that's really fucking awesome. There's just a boom, 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 with the double kicks on it. And which is another great reason for why this album is also creative for Incantation and fresh. Because they have stuff that I haven't really heard too much in their music, to be quite honest. And probably one of the best choruses after Concordat on the album, because with that riff, with the bomb blasts, it has to be like one of the best choruses on the album. And then after the Doom Zone right again, for some more evil and unholy sounds, just to be led into the most sinister and unholy sounding solo on the album. And then the outro has a fucking bunch of great drum fills that I really liked. And then we move on to the very last song on the album, Circle. It doesn't need to be super unique, because this is the definitive awesome doom track that we need on almost every Incantation album. Some absolutely menacing and punchy riffing from both guitarists into a very sinister sounding verse. And it's one of those really evil things that I love. I love when it, and chorus is also another great showcase of Incantation, and that they still know how to make Death Doom interesting when they do slow it down and doom it down a lot more. But then the song speeds up and we get some heavy goddamn riffing, but it was all just to unleash some more evil chants upon the ears of the listener. This time, though, John isn't shouting alone. This time, he was joined by the legendary inventor, the guy who fornicated, started it all, who put the seed down in the soil and watered it and grew it up to its fucking branches, who made the fucking apple tree fucking sprout out fucking big apples, like those big Japanese apples that cost a lot. Jeff Becerra, none other than fucking Jeff Becerra himself from fucking Possessed, to join for the fucking gang vocals on the fucking, like, sort of a chorus thing going on. Just shouting, just awesome, and, it just goes to show, in general, just having him on this album is another, just, that cements this album as, this was no fuck, it was completely out of the question whether this was going to be a great album or not. Then we go back into the evils of the unknown with the dark and unwelcoming outro that this song bestows upon the listener with great execution. And all in all, a great finish to the album that reminds you that while they can definitely write unique and fresh sounding songs, they're always going to be Incantation. And I think that's pretty fucking awesome. So, overall, this album is another case of Incantation, in my opinion, obviously, being a great death metal band with super consistent songwriting, and that is why nothing has dipped in quality for me since Diabolical Conquest, which is why I gave this album a 10 out of 10, for simply just being that awesome. I've been Suicide Grind. You've been watching my Incantation Unholy Deification review, and you know the motto: stay cute.